Social Media and Society. Our group, Darcy Bass, David Kinneary, Elizabeth McLaughlin, and Molly Springer, will discuss the evolution of social media and the part it plays in two different sociological theories. To begin, it is important to discuss the phenomena of social media and where it is today. Did you know that roughly 45% of the world is on social media, and that is only going to grow from here? According to a study done by Tiana Tamir and Jason Mitchell, humans devote 30 to 40% of speech solely to informing others about themselves. This information sharing has a positive neural response on the brain. This proved their hypothesis that self-disclosure is inherently valuable, which can explain the extreme popularity of sharing info through social media. First, we will discuss both of these theories at a macro level, and then, moving forward, describe them in more of a micro level and how they affect people personally. The first theory we will discuss is interactionist theory. Social media has forever changed the way that humans interact. Two groups of people, Neo-Luddites and technophiles, feel different about social media. Neo-Luddites are against new technology, while technophiles encourage the growth of this new wave. Many people believe that everyone can be split up into these two new categories. Social media has added a new dimension of interactions, whether it's for the better or for the worse. Since interactionist theory focuses on the way we make sense of our social words, social media allows people to handcraft these messages that they are portraying to their friends, colleagues, and the rest of the world. Next up is the conflict theory. Social media has also vastly changed this. Ashley Crossman, a sociology professor at Arizona State University, states that conflict theory states that tensions and conflicts arise when resources, status, and power are unevenly distributed between groups in society, and that these conflicts become the engine for social change. Social media creates a facade of fake lives. It shows that more followers means more influence and more power. Next, we will go into more of a micro level on how these theories work in social media and in our world today.
Conflict theory explains the natural division of people. In institutions such as the workplace and school, power dynamics develop between coworkers and peers. When one group has more power than another, bullying often begins to occur. Social media increases the amount of power people have over each other because people are much more confident behind a screen.
Actually, I was a victim, and I don't like that.
What Tanerica Berry doesn't like is a hateful post found on Yik Yak about herself.
It was mostly rumors and lies, and people are just spreading stuff just to fit in with the crowd.
How hurtful was that?
It was very.
The free app is a cross between Snapchat and Twitter that can be seen from users in a 5-mile area, except the senders are anonymous. The post sometimes crude, rude, and riddled with foul language.
It's causing a lot of problems with self-esteem and friendships are being lost and stuff, so it's not really good.
Bad is how parent Priscilla Dixon describes it. Her daughter expressed concerns.
I think it is an interesting little platform that doesn't seem to serve any purpose other than to facilitate bullying.
That's the concern of administrators from Whitney Young, Latin, St. Ignatius, Francis Parker, to New Trier and Lake Forest. They all send warning letters to students. Anyone using the app to bully, our response will be direct and immediate.
I'm hoping that the overwhelming amount of students are going to look at that this is just nonsense.
Hoping students will avoid the app is about all schools can do. Technical experts say blocking Yik Yak won't work.
Schools really don't have any way to lock down a network on a phone that's being served by a major carrier. Schools can't block that.
When I was in high school, an app called Yik Yak became popular within my classmates. The app quickly became an issue because students were being bullied anonymously. No one could get in trouble for an anonymous post, so the bullying could not be prevented. Like the girl in the video and many other students, Elizabeth Long was the victim of a bullying enabled by Yik Yak. She attempted suicide earlier in the school year, and her classmates used that information to create hateful yaks attacking her. She created a petition on change.org to get the app shut down and met with the creators to establish safety settings to prevent further bullying. The app was eventually sold to Square for $1 million.
Now on the micro level. Social media can have negative consequences in teens. The results of too much time spent on social media can be lower self-esteem,
social isolation, poor concentration, decreased activity, sleep disruptions, and even depression. For lower self-esteem, this is especially true with teen girls because they are comparing themselves with celebrities, photoshopped to appear thinner, prettier, and rich. Teenagers mistakenly view these as their models of what is deemed normal, which can be destructive to their self-worth. Studies have shown that girls will also spend a lot of time trying to construct the perfect post of themselves, worrying that they will not be accepted by their friends. Social isolation, research has revealed a correlation between the heavy use of social media and perceived social isolation. Teenagers may induce anxiety from worrying about why they're not invited to a party they see on Facebook or Instagram. It is what our culture has called fear of missing out, or FOMO. Teens use social media believing it's what connects them to others, when in fact it takes them out of the present moment of their life. This in turn makes them feel more isolated. Poor concentration. It is common for teenagers to do tasks that require concentration, such as homework, while simultaneously interacting on social media with friends. Many are even proud of being able to multitask. However, studies have shown that this constant disruption is actually making attention issues worse and reducing learning and performance. Decreased activity. When teenagers are spending an excessive part of their free time on social media, it means they're spending less time on activities that would increase new mental skills, on hobbies, and especially physical movement. When we exercise, our body releases endorphins that interact with receptors in our brain to trigger a positive feeling and help reduce depression. Because they are less likely to have physical activity, teens are not receiving these feel-good endorphins and are not getting the benefits of improved self-esteem. And finally, sleep disruptions. Studies suggest that more than half of adolescents are looking at social media on their phones prior to going to bed, and they're also getting, on average, an hour less of sleep than their peers who don't use their phones before bed. It is not only the blue light from electronic screens that's disrupting falling asleep, it is also the stress and anxiety of the content on social media. Teens are worrying that they're falling behind and keeping up on what their friends are posting. Depression and social media. In several recent studies, teenage and young adult users who spend the most time on Instagram, Facebook, and other platforms were shown to have substantially higher rates of reported depression than those who spent the least time. A 2017 study of over 500,000 8th through 12th graders found that the number exhibiting high levels of depression symptoms increased by 33% between 2010 and 2015. In the same period, the suicide rates for girls in that age increased by 65%. Some experts see the rise in depression as evidence that the connections social media users form electronically are far less emotionally satisfying, leaving them feeling socially isolated and depressed.
Bringing it back to the macro level, we are going to take a look at the social consequences associated with the use of social media in today's world. The rapid change in communication has brought its fair share of positive effects, but the social consequences cannot be dismissed. President Trump loves saying fake news, and even though it has become a joke of sorts, he isn't wrong. Today's social media helps to flood society with mass amounts of information, no matter if it's true or false. Humans are no longer taking in information from one newspaper or one news station. They're taking in info from thousands of sources. When that happens, there is no way to ensure the facts behind what you are reading are true, besides doing your own research. There is no regulation for what people can post, say, leading to false information being accepted as truth. In October of 2017, the New York Times reported that Facebook is the #1 platform for new and inexperienced users, which makes them far less likely to be skeptical about information. This makes Facebook also the #1 platform for spreading misinformation, not to mention propaganda and hate speech in some situations. Being able to filter out false information is a learned skill that many individuals don't have due to the lack of education and unfamiliarity with internet norms. Younger generations tend to have the upper hand in this regard. Growing up with the internet means they only know one way of intaking information, while older generations rely on social norms they were once used to but tend not to exist anymore. Which brings us to the next social consequence of social media: how desensitized we have become. A study performed by the University of Michigan discovered that college students are 40% less empathetic than students 30 years ago. The spike in the lack of empathy can be blamed partly on the birth of social media in the early 2000s. The data shows that students are less likely to feel affected by mass tragedy or to help out a friend in need. Every time we see something online about ourselves, especially something positive, our body gets a sudden release of dopamine. Social media trains us to be careless about other people and believe in a more self-centered mentality. This also desensitizes us. Every time an important cause hits social media, it blows up for a few days and then gets forgotten. And once we see a cause or an idea multiple times, we start to disregard it altogether. We forget that these are real people that are suffering, that really do need the help from their community. Even though social media has brought us together via unlimited communication, it is also driving us apart by desensitizing us to reality and what is really important to human nature. In conclusion, social media changed the way people interacted so rapidly no one really knew how to approach it. For a long time, the internet was the wild, wild west. Only recently have we actually began to take notice of the damage it is causing. The new generation of teens has been negatively affected. The results of too much time spent on social media can be a lower self-esteem, social isolation, poor concentration, decreased activity, sleep disruptions, and even depression. The older generations are just as bad, leading the cause in the spread of misinformation. Today's society needs to take a step back and think about what really matters in life, not what really matters on the gram.